All right, we're live. Little road work, if you can't tell. Looks like I'm kind of like at a nice antique shop. Got the Christmas spirit going. Uh, Holly Jolly right there. Got some books. Got the daughter walking around too. But we are live. Texans got a lot going on, and not a lot of good things going. Although they are the top headline right now on ESPN. It is the locker room number one source for Texans digital content. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, whether I'm on the road or not. I appreciate y'all uh, for rolling through. And yes, Robert is right. Tomorrow. And by the way, this segment brought to you by BetUS. Go to BetUS, use the promo code YouTube150, and you'll get a 150% bonus uh, up to $2,000. That's right in time for the gambling. Speaking of which, we'll take a look at that and what the line is telling us in about 25 minutes. But right now, we got to get right into this Tank Dell situation. So, D'Amico Ryans confirmed today that Tank Dell is going to be out for the season. I thought it was pretty, I don't want to say funny. It was par for the course that D'Amico Ryans goes up there. And yesterday, he wouldn't admit that, stop. He wouldn't admit that Tank Dell was going to be out for the entire season. But today he confirmed that, and he also confirmed that Jimmie Ward is going to be out as well, which I actually think you can make a very strong case that that one actually might be harder to replace than Tank Dell. And here's my reasoning. My reasoning is simple. I promise I'll make it make sense. But first, on the super chat, Andy, my goodness, Merry Christmas to you, my friend. Appreciate you. Appreciate y'all for riding along. Got plenty of season left, and all love from here out in OKC. I'm in OKC. How about that? Lawson also on the super. Is it crazy to think I'm about to get to this? So I'm actually going to give you credit. You alley ooped it. I'm going to try to dunk it. Might just lay it in. Don't know. Depends what you think. But Lawson, I think your head's in the right place. Um, he says that is it crazy to think the Jimmie Ward injury hurts the team more than the Tank injury? This offense is bad regardless. Now we get Akuda um, taking meaningful snaps. And I agree with you. I actually agree with you very much. I think that the Jimmie Ward thing is going to be it's gonna it's going to hurt a lot worse uh, than the it's going to hurt a lot worse than the Tank Dell injury. And the reason is because it changes the whole way you play defense. It changes the entire manner in which you play defense. And when you're talking about a defense where D'Amico Ryans, one of his best coaching decisions was using Jalen Petrie the way he did. And then when he lost Jalen Petrie, he basically had the luxury of having Jimmie Ward there as well. And Jimmie Ward's been elite as a nickel. So now that you've done that, you have to change the whole. Now the good news about that is you trust the defensive coaching staff to be able to move guys around and get the job done. So that's the good news. And the other good news is you're getting your three top linebackers back when the Aziz suspension expires after this one, so you can figure it out. But I think we see a lot more traditional defense, and I don't think we actually get a look at what this defense is going to look like, even with Aziz back. I don't think we actually get a look at what that's going to look like until the actual playoffs. Because what reason do they have, especially with a coaching staff that is so paranoid especially with that coaching staff. Why would they show what they're going to do before the playoffs? I don't think that's going to make sense. But there is no replacement for Jimmie Ward. Now, you move Kamari Lassiter inside, which kind of hurts. And now you put Jeff Okudah on the field. Some people are saying, well, that sucks because you're putting Okudah on the field, but you don't have a choice. You're going to have to play 3 corners now, and Okudah is going to be on the field. You damn sure don't want Jeff Okudah on the inside, because we saw that. We saw what that looked like against the Cowboys when he got lined up against Turpin. And I think that one play when he was on the inside is one of the main reasons why I think people are kind of sour on Jeff Okudah. Is Turpin takes it to the house, Okudah comes, and he ends up scoring. And now you move Lassiter on the inside, so you figure that out. So I think the Jimmie Ward thing is the worst because you have one of the is the worst of the two, because Tank Dell had some unproductive games. We actually talked about that last week. Tank Dell had a game where he had 1 catch. He had a game where he had no catches. He had a game where he had like 1 for -3. The offense was bad with Tank Dell. Now, you did get a taste of what Tank Dell was capable of, and he looked like he did last year against Kansas City, which is unfortunate. But for the most part, we know that even with Tank Dell, the offense could look very, very pedestrian. That's not the case with the defense. Whether Petrie was in that role or Jimmie Ward, they were able to play the 4-2-5 defense, and they played that at a high level. So now they just got to change everything they got to do, and they got to move Okudah back on the field. So I think you can make a case that the Ward one kind of hurts a little bit. Primetime V, shout out to you. Merry Christmas to you, my friend. He says, if you had to pick which injury is worse at the wrong time heading into the playoffs, I think the Jimmie Ward one is worse. Absolutely. That's not even a knock on Tank. That's a knock on the whole offensive process. And that was one of the topics that we talked about last year. So the question now is, how do you replace Tank Dell? I think we've kind of gotten a little bit of a snippet from that, where the Texans, the top headline on ESPN right now, the Texans signed Diontae Johnson. And at the very least, that gives you some uncertainty. That gives you some uncertainty and maybe some intrigue. Diontae Johnson has 3 touchdowns this year. Diontae Johnson has a lot of talent. He has some explosiveness. He's also got a little bit of an attitude problem. The one thing I would say, and the one action that I think kind of shows that this is worth it, is the fact that the other team that put in a request for Diontae Johnson was the Chargers. And the Chargers are coached by Jim Harbaugh. The Ravens, who got rid of Diontae Johnson, they're coached by John Harbaugh. So if this was just some sort of like lost cause, not worth it, why would Jim Harbaugh decide to do it and roll the dice? I think the Diontae Johnson situation in Baltimore had as much to do with him not being a good fit and him not being the type of guy you want to just linger around, not being a good fit and not getting any run. It's one thing to have Xavier Hutchinson or John Mechie not getting any run and them hanging around. But Diontae Johnson, you got a lot of weapons on Baltimore's squad. You got a lot of receiving threats. They tried to see if it worked. It didn't work. So they charge it to the game and they get rid of him. They don't need him. Chargers and Texans, they're both desperate teams for receivers at this point. So the fact that Jim Harbaugh was willing to look into it, that tells you all you need to know about whether or not this was worth the risk or not. I think it absolutely was. I also think Diontae Johnson's better than Xavier Hutchinson. I think he's better than John Mechie right now. And he might be better than them barefoot, to be honest with you. I mean, we've seen what those guys do when they're called upon to step up. And I heard CJ Stroud say today, and we'll get into kind of the vibes of the press conference, because I thought the whole vibe of the press conference was weird as well. But I heard CJ say, when asked about guys stepping up, he said, you guys have seen it with Hutchinson and Mechie. Yeah, we have. It's not good. Like that's not a good thing. It's cool when Mechie can go in there and get a few catches when you have top tier guys in there. But as far as just relying on John Mechie to be like your second most productive receiver, not going to happen. So when you bring in Diontae Johnson, there's two ways of looking at it. Number one, the guy's brother who said goodbye was willing to bring him in. So as far as like the headache, all that, he's willing to do it. So why would you not be willing to do it? And you block him from going there too. That could be your first round opponent. The second thing is he better than what you got right now? And I think this case could have been made. This is why I was talking about Odell Beckham Jr. Even before Tank Dell went down. I think Odell and I think Diontae are both better than what they got. Now, if you had Tank, do you bring in Diontae Johnson because of all the other stuff? Maybe not. But desperate times call for desperate measures. And in the short term, at least it's unknown. We know Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie can't be number 2 productive receivers. They've had multiple instances and it doesn't happen. Those guys disappear. They come and go. I mean, I don't even know if these guys are going to be on the roster next year when you have top end guys. So we know that those guys don't get it done. We don't know what Diontae Johnson's going to look like. We have no idea. And in the short term, you get a more talented guy on the depth chart. And in the long term, maybe this guy's your number 3 or number 4 receiver next year. Maybe Diontae Johnson's a long-term piece. Maybe I'm calling it Jerry Jeudy light. Maybe it's Jerry Jeudy light, where Jerry Judy's a very productive player this year. And before that, he was a head case. The Broncos didn't want him. They basically gave him away. Kick the tires on Diontae Johnson and see what happens. It's not going to hurt you. And if it doesn't, bye-bye. You get 3, 4, whatever games with him, and then bye-bye. And you go right back to square one. But I see nothing wrong with the Diontae Johnson thing. So when it comes to the original question here, and it is a locker room number 1 source for Texans digital content, when it comes to the number 1 question here, and we'll get to Judge Dreads in a sec about replacing Tank Dell. When it comes to that question, what are you replacing? That's the question. Need to quit looking for a savior. They need to play team ball. I thought Nico was the truth. Well, I don't know what the hell that means. You're gonna have to elaborate on that. I have no idea. I don't know what that means. Got to play team ball. What does that mean? Diontae Johnson's gonna have to play team ball. He's not gonna be here. D'Amico let it slip why Kendrick Green hasn't playing this year due to his consistency. Okay. Well, why is Shaq Mason playing then? Why is Shaq Mason playing? I know he's hurt and he's day to day, so I'm not trying to kick a man when he's down. If we're going to talk about consistency, what is Shaq Mason doing out there? Why did Kenyon Green have to get hurt to get benched? I don't need to hear about consistency on the interior of the offensive line. I don't need to hear that. But the Diontae Johnson thing makes sense. And when it comes to replacing Tank Dell, look at the game logs. We've watched it. He's disappeared more times than he hasn't in the offense. So I don't know what exactly they're looking to replace. Shout out to Charles Colston. Merry Christmas to you, my friend. It's a lunch pail guy right there with that hard hat. He ain't messing around. Shout out to him, man. Whether you're resting, whether you're grinding, enjoy your Christmas, Charles. Replacing Jimmie Ward, that's going to be much more difficult. Don't know how they do that. Do I think Diontae's better than Tank? Not right now. I think he's got more talent. He's been more productive in his career. He was a Pro Bowler. He had over 1,000 yards and was a Pro Bowler. He's still a pretty young guy. I mean, would stranger things have happened, much stranger things have happened than a guy who's 28 years old, finding the right situation, and much stranger things have happened than a 28-year-old wide receiver coming through and finding his groove and producing. So I don't know he's better than Tank. I know he's had more productive years. So we'll see how it goes. As far as like the whole Ravens thing, I don't even know if he knows the Ravens playbook, to be honest with you. I don't even know if he knows the Ravens playbook. Like people talking about inside information and all that. I don't know how you do that. But the Jimmie Ward thing is much more of a concern. But the reason we know that Diontae Johnson is worth the risk is because Jim Harbaugh is willing to sign him. The action showed you. Jim Harbaugh is willing to sign him, then that's really all I need to know. And that really should be all that any of us need to know. That's it. The end. Boom. What is the payoff for battling the Ravens? Like what is the payoff for beating the Ravens? If you win your next 2 games, you're going to win the 3 seed. But here's my problem with that. Here's my problem with that. If that happens and you go all in on that, then your guys are going to be playing. Now, if it happens without throwing all your guys out there, then that's fine. But if that happens, that means that you're not going to get any rest. I think in a perfect world, the Tennessee Titans game is basically a de facto bye, where you're resting your guys, you're icing up. Joe Mixon, ice up. And I was saying this before, and I know a lot of people were against it, but I think just like a lot of people were against Diontae Johnson, but you might be more on board with that. I think you might be more on board now with icing up and resting against the Ravens. Because what does the 3 seed mean? When would the 3 seed matter? The 3 seed matters if you think you're getting an easier second round matchup. Okay, if the Texans were the 3 seed today, that would mean that and it's a big ass if you're able to win your first playoff game, then you're going to play Buffalo instead of Kansas City. Don't know that I would rather play Buffalo than Kansas City at this point. Then it would matter if Kansas City gets upset and you beat Buffalo, then you get to host the AFC Championship game. Those are some big ifs. Now, if we're going to play the if game, though, let's not be one-sided. Let's cover all ground on it. So that's the if there, where the 3 seed matters. Okay? What if you play Joe Mixon and Joe Mixon gets banged up against Baltimore? What if Joe Mixon gets banged up against the Titans? Now, some people say, well, it's football. Anything can happen. Anyone can get hurt. Joe Mixon's been banged up quite a few times this year. 2 games ago, we saw Joe Mixon limping off the field. If I'm running the team, Joe Mixon's not playing till the playoffs. I'm resting Joe Mixon. I'm resting Nico Collins. I'm playing Diontae Johnson in 3 days. You don't have to learn the whole playbook. Go out there. We'll tell you your route. We'll try to get you on the same page. We'll get you acclimated and we'll showcase you. Because the dependency on Nico Collins and Joe Mixon is so high that I don't think that risk is as high as the reward. And it's not a gutless approach. Why do you think the Chiefs want the number 1 seed so much? They want to buy. They want to rest. So if you're able to do that, why not? So just play Diontae Johnson, go out there, see what happens. Let Hutchinson and Mechie go out there. Nico Collins, put some sweats on. Joe Mixon, put some sweats on. Hell, y'all don't even have to go in the locker room at halftime. We'll let you watch the Beyonce. Remember when McPherson from the Bengals at the Super Bowl was sitting out there watching 50 Cent? You guys can watch Beyonce. Joe, you're important. Nico, you're important. Put the sweats on. Go watch Beyonce. I don't need y'all out there playing this. There's no payoff for that 3 seed. CJ needs to get some work. He needs to get on the same page with Diontae Johnson. JP says, let Mills play. I don't want Mills playing. CJ, go get some work. Offensive line, get some work. That's not valuable enough. That's an interchangeable offensive line. That's musical chairs right there. I'm not saying don't try to win. Go try to win. But I'm not putting 28-12 out there. That's me. They're not going to do that. But I think at this point, those guys are so important. That's your key. Get these other guys acclimated. See if any of these other receivers can do something. Bring up Johnny Johnson. Bring up all these guys and see if they can get anything going. Make this kind of an evaluation. You know what Nico Collins is. Nico Collins is going to be ready to go. You need to see that. You know what Joe Mixon is. Ice up. If you want to play him against Tennessee for like a quarter or something like that, okay. Let's get a little tune-up. But this 3 games in 10 days for Joe Mixon and Nico Collins and how they play, like a lot of these guys can go out there and play on the 3 days and 10 days. The way Joe Mixon plays and the way Nico Collins play, that style, give them a rest. Turn it into a luxury. Hell, Team player says, rest Stingley. Why not? Rick says they need to prove to themselves they can beat a contender. Why? Why? What does that matter? You think it's a belief thing? They don't need to prove anything. They need to prove they can win a playoff game. That's when it matters. They don't need to prove it. They don't need to prove that they can beat a contender for what? They could have easily beat Kansas City if the refs hadn't decided that they were going to do what they did in the second quarter, first quarter, whatever it was. They don't need to prove anything. For what? If they beat the Ravens on Wednesday, what does that prove? What if they go out there and Joe Mixon gets banged up? Need to prove nothing. Go out there and get ready to play. That's the other element of it for JW videos. You win, you got the Steelers, and you lose, you got the Steelers in the first round. Would you rather play the Steelers or the Ravens? Tell me how that works for you, Rick. I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying. So if you win, then who do you got? Denver or Baltimore in the first round? Who would you rather play? Because if you lose, chances are the Steelers are going to lose the division. And the Ravens, you're going to avoid them in round 1. Who do you want? You want the Ravens twice? When it matters the most? Nah. I'm good on that. Someone says, looks like Mattress Mac sitting there. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm imagining it's for the road work. B says, I'll rather lose to the Ravens than play the Steelers. But we got to bounce back in the second round against KC. I like where your head's at. Ice up, man. Ice up. Joe Mixon, ice up. Get ready. Because I guarantee you he's going to bring his A game in the playoffs. I want him as fresh as possible. He can single-handedly win you a playoff game. So can Nico Collins. They can single-handedly win you a playoff game. Ice up. You team ice up or not? Let me know. Let me know. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Let's look at this BetUS line real quick. And again, promo code YouTube 150 if you want to get in. Free bonus up to up to $2,000. But let's just look at this line right now. And I'm not going to touch this yet. But you have the Baltimore Ravens right now. They're a -5.5 point favorite. Now, what is this? Is this a result of them knowing that maybe the Texans aren't going to play it as aggressive as they normally would? Is that just that Baltimore's that much better of a team? I think it could be either one of those things. I don't think the Texans are in the same class with the Ravens right now. But that's a lot of points right there. I mean, for a team that was supposed to be a contender, I mean, that's a lot of points. That kind of tells you what the state of the Texans is at this point. So if you want to go to Bet US, you can get on that. The props are going to be interesting as well. I cashed the Tank Dell ticket last week. I actually took Tank over in yards. I took CJ over 1.5 touchdown passes. And this one is going to be tough because you don't know how aggressive they're going to be. So we'll take a look at the props before the game. But that's just where they're at. And then the Steelers, they're +3 against the Chiefs. I could see the Steelers beating the Chiefs, to be honest with you. Today's injury report. Let's take a close look at that. So Will Anderson limited. Ice him up. Don't play him. Do not play Will Anderson. He's been banged up. Do not play Will Anderson. Let him sit. Let him sit and watch Beyonce too. No thank you for Will Anderson. Danico Autry limited. Ice up. Nick Broker, you can gut it out. Fatukasi, man, rest up. You've been hurt all year. Christian Harris, ice up. Shaq Mason, DNP, John Mechie, full. Get out there and show something. Juice Scruggs, DNP, Cade Stover, full participant. All right, go out there. Although Andrew Beck's better right now. And that's the other thing. We'll see the Andrew Beck factor. You talk about replacing Tank Dell. I think we'll see some Beck to free up Schultz. Maybe you get that as an intermediate option. Probably see a little bit of that. I think Cade Stover's a year away from being a productive player. I think once he gets in the weight room this offseason, I think we probably see a little bit better version of Cade Stover. But in the moment, I don't think he's better than Beck. I don't even know that he's better than Irv Smith at this point. I don't know. Juice World has a hot take. Anytime someone says hot take, you got to see this. Nico Collins isn't the same before his injury. I mean, he hasn't produced the same. I think he's just as explosive. I think teams are focusing on him a little bit more now. I think you kind of got to look at how important he is. I don't have 100% certainty on that. I know that the Dolphins shadowed Ramsey with him. So you saw that type of attention. Right now, you're to the point where I would assume every playoff team is just going to try to take away Nico Collins. There's no one that's really going to demand a lot of respect on the other side. So, yeah, I don't know that he's worse, but he's not producing as well. So maybe you can say he's worse, but I think teams are probably paying a little bit more attention to him. Nico got to wake up. He's been quiet. Okay, so Nico, step it up, crew. Jacob says, "Let the practice squad play this one." Hey, you know how I am. I would have done that before this. Space City says that the Ravens claim Sims. I actually think Steven Sims probably knows the whole damn playbook. I don't think Diontae Johnson. You brought in Diontae Johnson to play, so people are talking about inside info. I don't think he was there long enough or really wanted to be out there enough to be helped. I bet Steven Sims knows the playbook like the back of his hand. Is there anything that looks more foolish though, by the way, than the Texans keeping Steven Sims around? Like seriously. Like if you just look at the layout of what is going on with Steven Sims, what exactly did they accomplish by keeping him around? They got rid of Andrew Beck. They got rid of Noah Brown. What was accomplished by that? That was a waste. He wasn't a good punt returner. Damn near cost you a game. What was the point? I mean, you can add that to the list of strange stuff that they've done on offense, but I don't understand what the point of Steven Sims having a roster spot was at this point. It looks extremely weird to have kept him around. I don't. I just don't get it. What the point of that was. Made no sense. Yeah, he scored against the Ravens in the playoff game. He returned the punt for the touchdown. Yeah, when the offense wasn't doing anything. But there was no point to Steven Sims. That was one of the weirdest things. And the weirdest thing is they got rid of Andrew Beck. And then you see Andrew Beck. And I know Dalton Schultz still runs like a dog that is in the waiting room at the pound, waiting to get put away. That's kind of how he moves. You can hear his knees cracking from here. But it did kind of feel like he was freed up a little bit more the other day. And I know Beck didn't play as many snaps, but it does feel like Andrew Beck does what he's asked to do better than Dalton Schultz. Like, I don't know why you use Dalton Schultz like a fullback. I mean, you might as well. I like Dalton Schultz. I've always found Dalton Schultz pretty entertaining, but what exactly are you accomplishing by having Dalton Schultz at fullback? You might as well just lay out a red carpet and just say, hey, hit the quarterback. If you're going to have Dalton Schultz doing fullback things, don't get it. It's the Dalton Schultz contract is weird. It's basically a 2-year deal. You can get out after 2. Look, there was talk about him getting franchise tag. They basically gave him 2 franchise tag years. So I don't know. I don't think that should prevent you from just running it back. They got to figure something out at the tight end situation. There's a lot of people upset with the effort. I don't think it's an effort thing with Dalton Schultz. I just think he's never been explosive. And I think the explosiveness is just kind of getting exposed. Dalton Schultz is a guy, and this was the case in Dallas. Like even when Dalton Schultz was doing his thing, and even when he was doing his thing last year to a certain point, when guys were producing at a higher level around him, Dalton Schultz is kind of a guy that when he has a ton of talent around him, he's able to just kind of be the free guy and the guy that's open. Does that make sense? Like in Dallas, when they had CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Tony Pollard, and Dalton Schultz, yeah, he's wide open, he's catching passes, and he's doing his thing. That was when the Cowboys had decent talent. Michael Gallup. They had a lot of talent. Dak Prescott. Say what you want about him, good quarterback. So Dalton Schultz is able to just kind of free up and catch passes in Dallas. Now, eventually they upgraded and they got Ferguson, and Ferguson was Pro Bowl caliber a couple years ago, kind of falling off a little bit. But they got Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz just go out there and catch the ball wide open. Wide open. Last year with the Texans, Tank was producing at a high level. Noah was producing at a high level in certain games. Nico was doing his thing. CJ was doing his thing. And you had a lot of guys, and Dalton Schultz was freed up. But this year, when you've needed Dalton Schultz to be the number 2 guy on any given Sunday, or you need Dalton Schultz to do stuff, either they're just asking him to do the wrong stuff, or it's just kind of getting exposed that he needs a crap ton around him for him to be able to be wide open and freed up. I think that's just kind of what we're seeing with Dalton. Like when you're paying Dalton Schultz $13 million a year, that's a lot. And then you look at Jonnu Smith getting 2 years 8. It's like, wow. I mean, I wish I could see the day. On defense, the Texans can find guys off the streets. They can find guys that, you know, nobody wants or they can get the most out of. But on offense, that just hadn't been the case. Maybe Diontae Johnson's that first guy. He's the one that you see. But Dalton Schultz, just not really that dude. It's not really that dude. Did anyone notice? And I don't know if y'all watched the CJ Stroud presser today, but it almost felt like a funeral. And I know him and Tank are close and stuff, but I mean that was kind of sad, the CJ thing. And I hope he's going to be all right. I mean, this has been a weird last it's really been a weird 2024 for CJ Stroud. Because just think about it. So you have the Super Bowl where he's basically one of the top dudes. He's like the A-list guy on Radio Row. He's on every podcast known to man, from Kevin Hart's podcast to $1 million worth of game to Cam Newton's to everything. Like, he's the man. And CJ Stroud trying to get to that elite spot. And I'm not sitting here saying he did too much. I'm just saying, like, he's the man. This guy's the man. There's high expectations. You come into camp. Oh, good. Nice. And the other thing about this, and this is really what I want to touch on in a second. Something that maybe we should have noticed in camp. I'll talk about in 5 minutes, but I'll finish this CJ Stroud point. So that happens. Then this season, they start off pretty decently. Then all of a sudden they hit a lull, and CJ's talking about, I need to go out there and have fun. I need to have more fun. And it's like, what? Like, that's the problem? You're not having fun? So I got to go out there and have some more fun is the solution? Like, that sounds kind of troubling, right? Because this is supposed to be a damn grind, isn't it? Like, this is supposed to be just a complete and total grind in the NFL. I need to go out there and have more fun. Okay. Then they follow that up with a bad performance. They continue to stay stagnant, and you never really see CJ Stroud do what a lot of us thought he could do. I'm not sitting here like trying to make some sort of hot take and say that that CJ is like some flop or that soft, like, no, but I'm just saying it's been a weird year. It's been a really weird year to go from what it was at the start of the year to now. But here's something that just kind of just crossed my mind. And this wasn't even gonna be anything that I was really going to even bring to the forefront to talk about. But I do think this might be worth mentioning now. Back to training camp with what we actually saw. And there were a lot of things, a lot of times at training camp, you can get some clues and you can get like some ideas of what a team is going to be or what they're going to look like or what 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 you think the season will look like. Like, for example, when I saw Shaq Mason this year, I told Cody, I said, dude, this dude is cooked. This dude is washed, man. And I call it the Matt Khalil look. There's like if you really want to see how someone's washed up, and sometimes like guys at other positions will go out there and they'll look crappy at camp, but when an offensive lineman is having to go through the wear and tear of camp, and it's just hot as hell, and he's clearly cooked. Like he moves a certain way, he comes back, his body looks a certain way, and it gets away from him very fast. And I remember when they were talking about Matt Khalil being the free safety, uh, not the free safety, the left tackle, excuse me. And I was like, dude, this guy can't even go get a drink of water. Like you can hear his knees popping from the other practice field. Like this guy is washed up. And you could see that with Shaq Mason. He didn't look like he was in good shape. He wasn't he was kind of getting dominated like by Settle, Fatakasi, Edwards. Like we talked about how great Edwards looked in camp. It's like, yeah, he was going against Shaq Mason. And I think Edwards has been a good player, but yeah, of course he looked good. Look who he's going against. He's going against Shaq Mason. So of course he looks good. Yeah. You're right. He does. But you could see that with him. The other thing we saw, and we actually kind of talked about this. And if you followed us during camp, then you heard me and Stoots talk about this, and you probably heard most people that were watching at camp. We said that the defense was getting the best of the offense. And I think, and you go back and you think about it. Yes, this defense is really good, but the offense wasn't doing anything in camp. And you would talk to the coaches, and you would hear Bobby Slowick say, and D'Amico Ryans, "Oh, we're just really trying to make it hard on the offense." You know, yeah, we didn't, and we go back and talk about this and look at this and listen to these press conferences. We really just try to. A lot of times, whenever we're in practice, we just really want to make it hard on them, and we want to make it like really difficult on them to where, sometimes we're kind of misleading them and uh I don't even know how they were saying it, but it was kind of weird then, but it was almost like they were trying to like make excuses for why the offense like there wasn't even really like a back and forth. Like on a good football team, you want to see like some sort of back and forth where the offense wins this day, then the defense. It was very rare to see the offense win. Very rare. And they would say, "Well, we tried to make it we tried to make it hard on the offense." Okay? Now, my question is this, like they've done this year, were they just making excuses for the offense? Or do they maybe need to evaluate the way that they coach offense and not do stupid stuff like that to where you're just basically trying to screw with them? Like, does that throw off the communication? Because I thought it was strange because you'd hear Bobby say, "Yeah, a lot of times you're trying to confuse them." Brother, you're the offensive coordinator. You're trying to confuse him? How does that make sense? And maybe I'm just kind of overthinking it. I'm just trying to make sense of what they're doing. I mean, and the iron sharpening iron is, you're going back and forth. But they said it probably 5 to 10 times. Yeah, we try to make it hard on them. We try to confuse them. Why? And I think the whole way in which this offense is evaluated, the whole way in which this offense is coached, I think it needs to be looked at. So everything from the way they tape their ankles to the way that they call plays to the way that they um, evaluate offensive linemen to the way they evaluate wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, it all needs to be assessed. And when you're saying that you're trying to confuse them, JP said it. They look confused for 16 games. Yeah, they look like that, and I don't think that was intentional. I don't think it's just a Bobby Slowick thing. I think CJ deserves some of the blame too. And the way in which Bobby Slowick is discussed, I don't think it's inaccurate. I don't think that Bobby Slowick's a good offensive coordinator right now. Um, I at the best case scenario, he's just not a finished product, and he needs to figure some stuff out. Worst case scenario, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing, and last year was as good as it gets. But there does seem to be like a tone about Bobby Slowick as if he's like holding back Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, something like that. CJ's not that. He's not that right now. He's not in that class. So there's like this. Do I think that there's questions about whether or not Bobby Slowick is the right offensive coordinator? Yes, I think those are valid. But the way in which Bobby Slowick is talked about, it's almost like, yeah, and I think the offensive line is a problem. Offensive line was a problem last year. But CJ's got to be better too. And I think the offensive line too. Like it's there's like a real hesitation to say that maybe CJ Stroud's game isn't developing the way it needs to develop. Like there have been multiple times where there have been basic stunts that have occurred, or there's been a cornerback blitz. Like we've seen it multiple times. The opposing defense just blitzes the slot corner and he gets to CJ Stroud, and all of a sudden it's like, damn it, Bobby, damn it, offensive line. Or they run a stunt that you can see from a mile away, and it's like, why didn't the offensive line figure it out? At some point, the quarterback's got to figure it out. Maybe you need a smarter center or something like that. But at some point, the quarterback's got to see some of that. I saw Orlovsky talk about it the other day. You know, CJ should have changed the protection. Like when basic stunts occur, it's easy to sit there and it's easy to talk about Bobby Slowick. It's easy to talk about pick on the fat offensive linemen that aren't good. But maybe the quarterback can see some of these things. I don't think it has to be one or the other. Now, in the long term, you're going to be riding with CJ Stroud for probably a decade plus, however that works. But I think CJ deserves some of the blame. I don't think Juice Scruggs is supposed to see that the corner blitz is coming. Quarterback's back there, right? I mean, you see it all the time. How many times do you see Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes? He's coming, or something like that at the line of scrimmage. Whoever's the mic, he's got to see some of that. He's got to see some of it. Like Bobby Slowick's not working with Josh Allen. He's not working with Lamar Jackson. He's not working with Joe Burrow. I don't know whether CJ's regressed. I mean, I don't know whether he's regressed. I know he's not where he should be. I know it's not, he's not elite yet. I mean, the receivers aren't getting open maybe too. There's a lot of things going on. But when a basic corner blitz happens, that's the quarterback's fault. Especially when they're showing it. I mean, these basic stunts, he's got to see that. I mean, there's times where guys are just lining up here and they're going back. Like, what do you think he's doing? It's obvious. So that's just where that is with the offense. We'll see if Diontae Johnson can make a difference. I thought the press conference vibes were interesting today too. I mean, Bobby Slowick seemed to say that he said they had one of the best screen games in the league for a while. He says some crazy stuff sometimes, doesn't he? He really does. Bobby will say some crazy things. One of the best screen games in the game? Really? Don't have the Bobby drop on the road, but yeah, we can just say it. Damn it, Bobby. Talked about the explosive. Texans cap has gotten to where he don't got the high grade either. Man, I love you guys though. Y'all know all about that. The screen blocking is pitiful, but let's just be serious, man. How many times are they going to expect Dalton Schultz to block on a screen? Like you don't like this. The screen blocking is crazy. It's not good. But I mean, if you go to a restaurant and you know that the service is bad and it wasn't just a one time thing, you've seen it over the course of 5 years. Like a restaurant's been there 5 years. Dalton Schultz has been playing at the NFL at a decent level for what? Like over 5-ish years, however long it's been. You know he can't block. You know that. So if you go to a restaurant that has crappy service, are you going to go there after 5 years and bitch about the service? Nah, you're either going to go there and not expect good service, or you're just not going to go there at all. Are you going to order takeout? They keep asking Dalton Schultz to do things that Dalton Schultz can't do. That's a them problem. They don't do that on defense. They play. So if you're asking Dalton Schultz to block on screens, of course it's going to be pitiful. If you're asking Shaq Mason to run out there in front of a screen and block, of course it's going to be bad. If you're throwing it sideways to Robert Woods and saying, hey, Robert, turn back the clock. Let's act like you're at USC. Of course it's going to be bad. I just don't understand sometimes what they expect and what they want. What exactly do they think is going to happen? What exactly are y'all trying to accomplish? It's wild sometimes when you look at what they are really asking to do and asking some of these guys to do. Like Dalton Schultz, hey, go out there and be a fullback. Dalton Schultz, hey, run out there and you can barely run after you catch the football, but hey, I really need you to be not only do I need you to run out there, I need you to while you run out there, I need you to catch that fast ass defensive back or linebacker and get in front of him. They're asking guys to do stuff that they shouldn't be asked to do. Players must execute the play call. No, they won't. No, they don't. No, they don't. That's crazy. So you're telling me that like this? Just think about what you're saying there. They must execute the play call. So did the Indianapolis Colts ask Peyton Manning to run a triple option? How many quarterback draws did the Indianapolis Colts and Denver Broncos run with Peyton Manning? How many times did the Texans line Tank Dell in the backfield and say, "All right, it's 4th and inches. Let's go right into the DT." You don't do that. So asking Dalton Schultz to go out there and block on screens, what do you think's going to happen? He doesn't need to execute that. That's a crazy idea to even ask him to do that. I don't know what this plan is with what the Texans ask some of these guys to do. It's like they don't even know their personnel. It's like they don't even know who their guys are. Makes no sense. So the players don't got to execute the play call. You got to call plays. You got to call plays for your players based on what their strengths are. It's only a halfway thing. That's what's so frustrating. This isn't just a lost cause organization. It's just one side of the rock. And I've seen coaches, and this is why, you know, this is why a lot of people didn't want to bring in a defensive coach whenever you were going to have a young quarterback, because in a lot of cases, and you can figure it out. Like D'Amico's going to evolve as a head coach. He's going to be here for a long time, and I wouldn't want anyone else leading the charge. But people get hesitant because the offense, like it isn't a defense wins championships league anymore. It helps. It gives you a puncher's chance. You can make some noise. You need offense though. And on special teams, they're one of the most well-coached teams in the league. They've been for a long time with Frank Ross. On defense, they're one of the most well-coached teams in the league. D'Amico Ryan's been coaching at a high level there. On offense, they're asking Dalton Schultz to block on screens. That doesn't make sense. They're keeping Steven Sims around and getting rid of Andrew Beck, Noah Brown. That doesn't make sense. They're watching this offensive line perform poorly, and the only time some guys are getting opportunities is when there's an injury. That doesn't make sense. They're looking at Dalton Schultz and they're saying, hey, 2 years, 26 million with a third year that's fake. That doesn't make sense. Meanwhile, on defense, Malik Collins, who's just as productive, they're looking for upgrades because they're looking beyond the production with Malik Collins, and it worked out. You got Tim Settle on a 2-year, $6 million, $8 million deal, whatever it was. That's awesome. They're paying Danielle Hunter, and he's having a Pro Bowl season. Will Anderson's getting better. Last year it was, man, thank God that we drafted C.J. Stroud number 2 and didn't draft Will Anderson, and we traded back for Will Anderson. Who's gotten better from year 1 to year 2? The defensive guy. A lot of that has to do with surroundings. A lot of that has to do with personal, but the defensive guy. And that's a bad place to be. If this continues, I'm going to start calling D'Amico Buddy Ryans. Buddy Ryans is one of the faces of being all defense. This continues, it's going to be Buddy Ryans. We'll see what they do. Diontae Johnson things to start. I like that proactive vibe. Big fan of that. Call him Demeek. No O. I remember when Dirk Nowitzki was in the league. No defense. They called him Irk. Right now, this is like D'Amico is basically Dirk Nowitzki right now. Irk and Demeek. No O, no D. But we'll see how it goes. The future's bright. I mean, it's just a matter of how bright do you want to be. Your floor is pretty high with D'Amico. You can figure it out. But the offense, it feels like a lost cause. And as much as the Tank Dell thing hurts, don't be one of those people who says we've had injuries and you never had a chance. The offense never had a chance when they didn't have injuries. We haven't seen that all year. So keep an eye on it. Go to BetUS, promo code YouTube 150, up to $2,000. College football about to start too. We got some good bets there. So we'll see how that goes. And we'll see if the Texans can figure it out. Ice up. Playoff run. Still not completely out of the realm of possibility that they make a playoff run. They got the defense to do it. Offense, little question marks. D'Amico's going to have to be a wizard, though, with the absence of Jimmie Ward. That one hurts. We'll see how it goes. And no matter how it does go, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Road work. Shout out to everyone. Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy holidays to everyone. It's going to be a fun time. It's a fun ride no matter what. Nowhere else I'd rather be. Appreciate y'all for coming through.